when this was no longer obtainable, people will begin to look elsewhere for whatever reason. Now, the next slide is where I draw the fact of migration as discussed by Adamo. He said that migration takes several forms, national and international, voluntary, and then forced migration. It's national when it happens across national border, and then international when you have to leave your country to another country. And in terms of voluntary migration, it is propelled by pursuit of economic well-being. People want to flourish, then are looking at areas that will help them to flourish. That is where people migrate to. And then Europe is recognized as a migrant contraption involving Germanic, Slavic, and Turkish people. Of course, remember if you go back also to prehistory, where I told you that every other people migrated to Africa.
Try and round up so that we can have chapter 2. Try and round up so that we can go to chapter 2.
Okay. So Europe is a migrant contraption, and so is also other places in the world. And I also looked at the idea of city and migration, and I said that there is a mutual relationship between urbanization and migration, whereby both serve as cause and effect. And I said that city is consequent of urbanization. City is characterized by diversity and unity. And the last column, the last slide, I tried to offer some, to extend the research. Some of the things that the author did not discuss in the book. For instance, for him, everything about migration is positive. I think there are also negative consequences of migration, which we have not captured. We have to talk about, not migration, but urbanization, which we are not captured, like armed robbery. We are talking about armed robbery. We are talking about other forms of crime, and all that. And then the fact also that in Kano, there are separate quarters for different races. It's also a very big issue in the of Kano. Cities ought to be an open field. People are distinguished maybe by class, not necessarily by their race, or by their tribes, or by their religion. But this is the case in Kano. It's an area that people should also make research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eric Omazu. Let us now proceed to chapter 2 by Dr. Muhammad Kwari. Dr. Kwari, are you with us? I know you are with us. Can you present your slide, please, or your summary of chapter 2? Thank you very much. Dr. Kwari, are you there? Dr. Kwari. Dr. Masu, you can off your mic. Dr. Query. Wow. But let me go ahead and start presenting Dr. Query's summary, as I did for Dr. Eric. The glitch is really becoming unbearable. But chapter 2 is about Kano in antiquity, and what Dr. Query did in this is to review the author's writing based on primary sources. He identified the geographic characteristics and the fact that, like most African society, Kano emerged first as an hunter-gatherer's environment, and of course metamorphosed into what we have today. He also stated, referencing the author's writing, that the environment played an important role in the emergence of Kano. The earliest community he identified and agreed with the author were the Dala and the Madatai communities, from where other communities metamorphosed. Kano, in his view, is the melting point of diversity, the melting pot of diversity, as narrated by the author. According to Dr. Query's summary, there were two external migrations that impacted Kano, one from the Nile Valley and Yemen, and the other from North Africa. In other words, the proximity of Kano, as we know it today, and indeed in ancient times, make it receptive for external migrants, notwithstanding the desertification of this particular area, that is the northern neighbor, people still using camels and the other means of transportation to trade. So there was indeed international trade between Kano and the people on the other side of the Sahara Desert, and as far as Middle East, where a few also settled. Dr. Query also identified the religious institutions first developed around Dakara, where the Dala community go to worship. Indeed, like many African societies, according to the author, and in agreement with him, Dr. Query, there evolved a religious practice by the indigenous people, that is before the coming of Usman Dan Fodio. And indeed, Islam had made its way to this part of what is today Nigeria. But of course, the coming of Usman Dan Fodio and the success of the jihad changed the storyline in Kano, like in most northern and in fact all the way to southern, what later became southern Nigeria. And I think I've been able to summarize Dr. Query's summary of the author, since we couldn't get him. The next chapter is chapter 3, and Dr. Ebele Udoji, and you please speak to chapter 3. Can we unmute Dr. Ebele? Or Dr. Ebele unmute? Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, I'm presenting. Good morning, everybody.
You can't hear them, but they can hear you. Go ahead. Dr. Bailey.
Government. There were two.
Dr. Bailey, you are breaking. We can't hear you. Should I just go ahead and present on your behalf? I know you talked about the network issue in your
She's
area.
muted. Bro, she's muted.
No, she's muted.
Yes.
The video is not muted. Okay, just 1 second. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay. So I was already on my number. Saying that the prosperity of the Dala and the Madete community were said to have attracted incessant invasion from better organized communities who attacked the Kano at that time. And the author says that the Bagauda, who was sent from Daura to represent his mother, organized the Kano community for the Kano people. So he now instituted. He put his son in charge and retired to a town called Sheme, near the present day Kazara. Maybe because Kazara, he wanted to be close to his mother. Now again, under confrontation and diplomacy, the author talks about Gajimasu, who was the Seriki of the two communities from the years 1095 to 1134. The dynasty, annexing different districts and localities to merge them under Kano. He decided to bring the two communities of Dala and Madete together under one government. He used diplomacy. At this time, the author now introduces to us the diplomacy of intermarriage. He talks about the appeal of the diplomatic system of Gajimas to the chief priest of Dala, the Mazauda. He can cement the relationship. But because the two communities did not trust each other, the author tells us that the marriage proposal did not work out. It did not work out. So Gajimasu, being not being a battle person, decided to go back to, channel his energies towards building a city wall for more security at that time. We are in the medieval period, don't forget, and we are talking about Kano being secured at that particular time. So now, communities, and he talks about the Yusa, who was the Seriki, the fifth Seriki of Kano, from the year 1136 to 1194. The Yusa, as the Seriki, moved the administrative headquarters from the town called Gazarzawa to Gwamaja, which is much more closer to Dala Hills. Soon after, he launched a military invasion again on other smaller states, battling and then annexing these other cities like Badari, Gwame, Farirua, Karai. All he brought them under Kano at that time, and then they were all under the same government. His son who succeeded him, Naguji, reigned from 1194 to 1247, and he too was a warrior. Now, when he was at war, the Dala people revolted again because they are idol worshiping has been. So the Seriki had to withdraw from war and go back to deal with the Dala people. He returned home and fought and executed 4 of their leaders. And then at that time, the author brings about the introduction of taxation for the first time in Kano society. They introduced taxation, and people, being that they were agriculturists at that time and very successful one at that, they had to pay 1/8 of all their produce for the year to the Seriki for the upkeep of migrants. Now, Samiadan Shekaru was the 9th Seriki of Kano, as we were told by the author. And this Samiadan Shekarawu had no tolerance at all for the Dala shrines. So he now finally destroyed the shrines and their place of worship for the last time. He destroyed everything. But then after having destroyed this, what were the people worshiping? Nothing. They were just there. So this was when the author brought in the coming of the of Islam into Kano. This paved way for the coming in of Islam. So we see that Kano was prosperous in the 14th century. It is because the migrants were coming in from everywhere, and they were traders from the Middle East, from the Maghreb, even from the brought in the Tuaregs, the migrants from other empires, even Songhai Empire, ancient Ghana, Kano Boru, traders were coming in. Kano was becoming very much prosperous. And as they came in, at this time, the Fulanis arrived in 1380, as the author tells us, and came in, they are pastoralists. They came in with their cattle, you know, and they now started residing in from Mali, and they had introduced Islam to Kano, and the people peacefully accepted the religion. The author tells us a story of how they came, and they were about to pray, and they organized, and then they were praying outside the palace of the emir, and the emir was very much impressed. So he now invited their leader, the ulama, to teach him Islamic belief and so much that he made it the state religion.
I don't know why the picture is not coming.
He made it a state religion, and afterwards he now put all the followers of the ulama in different areas of Kano to start teaching the people Islamic education. And from there, a lot of other ulamas came in to Kano at that time. Then under the period of consolidation, the guy who was the he channeled all his energy towards building a mosque that was a center of excellence at that time. A mosque that became so popular that people were coming all the way from the north again, from Timbuktu, from Morocco, from Tunisia, Tripoli, Kano, bringing in again their own influences into Kano at that time. So the first ulama who were known as the Wangarawas left behind in Kano a scholastic dynasty that was very great. Then there came a time in Kano, the Seriki that was there. That he engaged Al-Magili, who was a famous Islamic scholar. to write the first constitution of Kano, which he did perfectly, and explained everything to the Seriki, and he, based on that, he carried out a lot of reforms in Kano. In fact, if the author tells us that Muhammad Rufa was the highest, the Seriki that did the highest contribution to the history of Kano at that time, even to today. He is the one that built the we are now brought into a period of decline. He tells us about the successors of Rufa who did not perform as well as he did. They did not do well because they didn't follow after the footsteps of Rufa in keeping to all the things he had done already. These ones were known as the less progressive successors of Rufa, known as the Kutumbawas. These Kutumbawas introduced unfair and oppressive taxes, and un-Islamic religious practices at this time came into the system. The cattle taxes, which, remember, the Fulanis, that they are pastoralists, they were not comfortable with that. And then he introduced the idea of the Kutumbawas introduced the idea of paying monthly market fees. It was not good for the traders. So at this period in time, the author tells us about how Kano began to disintegrate from all the big, the author told us a perfect history of Kano, a story of Kano that is very attractive, very beautiful and all that. And this period was a period of decline. So in conclusion, the extortion of the Talakawas and the senseless wars between the nation states in Kano. So this is the conclusion I drew at the end of this chapter 2. But then I would say, as somebody who is not a Muslim, and if I didn't live in Kano for some time, it would have been difficult for me, because the work is highly, highly detailed, to sift out the good and from the bad. So the author gave us a lot.
Thank you very much, Dr. Udochi, for presenting chapter 3 as one of the children of Kano, because I know that you were born in Kano, and you've taken up this challenge to do this. We thank you. We appreciate you going out of your house to giving the network to do this presentation, and just stay with us. And so we move on to chapter 4. Dr. Aneto, can you kindly present chapter 4? Dr. Gloria Aneto. Go ahead. Let's see. I have to unmute you. Dr. Aneto, go ahead, please. Dr. Aneto. Can you speak to your mic, please, where we can hear you? Dr. Aneto. I think I will just proceed by summarizing, Dr. Aneto. We don't have luxury of time. Dr. Aneto reviewed chapter 4.
Can you hear me now?
Ma'am, we've been waiting.
Yeah, the slide was not coming up. Yeah, I quickly want to say chapter 4, which I am to handle in the book. Really, the title there is about the clerics, clansmen, and political reform of Kano. And let me say that the writer put together his work just from his notes that he just had some time ago and decided to publish it in 1968. And finally, it grew to this big book we are all looking at today, which he published in 1999. And the book, generally, I'm just in a kind of brief introduction, really very interesting, very, very interesting as reading. It's the beginning of it, where yes, it's beginning. And the plot words are really very strong. And I say it is, the writer there says this is a status that has been developed for well over 1,000 years, making a difference in society in development. Wonderful poem that brings highlights talking about the supremacy of Kano. In this point, it says, if 3,000 cities rebuilt, Kano is surely the star of them all, surpassing them in everything, including their wealth, army, and warriors. A swarm of bees can only be pointed at from afar. Their approaches is at distant depth. The lair of the snake, and a coward, like a ram, fights his battles with hope. But once he dares to enter the jungle, then he becomes an discard. This is describing the supremacy of Kano and the belief of this writer in Kano. He's a patriotic writer for sure. Patriotic because he loves his country and very much
Dr. Aneto. Hello. Dr. Aneto, please, we are having difficulty hearing you. Can you move closer to your mic or I present on your behalf? I do not have enough time. We are having difficulty hearing you. And please go straight to, yes, go straight to the key contributions, the 2 slides on key contributions. We can come back to other views that you have. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I still can't hear you. We cannot hear you. I'm going to present the rest of your slide on your behalf, please. Sorry, we can't hear you. Okay, don't worry. If you guys can hear me, let me proceed and do it on your behalf. I think I will touch on 2 of our slides, which where she identified key contributions of the author to scholarship. According to her, Kano, in the writing of the author, has always been famous as a center of commerce. Okay, other contributions has to do with cultural impact of the Tripolitanian Arabs and other migrants that settled in the area. The study or the work by the author provided useful perspective of the Emirate administration. Remember, we've mentioned in my own introduction that Kano, unfortunately witnessed two colonialism. One, the Madame Fodio jihad, and the other one, the British colonial rule. When you look at the indigenous people that actually settled and accommodated other migrants. She also identified the fact that cultural integration of the Yemenite Arabs in Kano was very strong. And unlike the Lebanese that refused to be assimilated or be part of the onslaught of urbanity and development and transformation that was taking place during the period. She mentioned early Christian missionaries in Casa Kano, and unfortunately how they failed to really make major inroads within the community. The author, in the words of Dr. Aneto, also identified the early structure in terms of governance as the population increased, as the diversity became much more visible, and of course, this led to law, politics, and religion. So law was important. There was an element of politicking leading all the way to the mid-19th century, Kano, when, in the words of I believe this is the author or the reviewer, Kano. In summary, Dr. Aneto believes as follows, that late Dr. Muhammad Ukuba Adamu clearly charged the prehistoric events leading to the evolution of Kano as a major commercial center of international repute, and he cited a page and pages to justify that conclusion. She also mentioned the fact that his contribution, that is his seminar, and being one of the first few in indigent, again, about the Hermetic hypothesis, Eurocentric view, and the need to decolonize and bring to the front runner the Afrocentric perception and perspective based on rooted primary sources to write about Kano. And indeed, many African society in conclusion, according to Dr. Aneto, the book is clearly important and conflict studies. Interestingly, peace and conflict studies, because as I stated again, and this is in agreement, and we never discussed this, peace studies has become an important academic discipline. We now have, starting in the mid-2000, year 2000, the degree all the way to PhD. But late Dr. Muhammadu Ubadamu seems to have recognized, identified, and even talked about it as it relates to Kano. So the book is not just about migration. It is not just about or governance. It is not just about religion. It is also about peacemaking, peace building, which is so unique. And with that, she concludes. We will move on speedily to chapter 5. And Dr. Felicia Omen, if you are with us, let's unmute you, and then you can present. Dr. Omen, you are on mute. Dr. Omen, are you there? If you're hearing me, can you unmute yourself?
Good morning.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
All right, good morning. Yes. As I looked at chapter 5 and the book entirely, I was trying to relive my experience when I went to Kano for conference marking last year. And some of the places that were mentioned, I was wondering, could it be one of the places I visited? That's just by the way. So chapter 5 is, is still an advancement of the author's interest in providing an exploratory approach to his discussion of the emergence of Kano as a city-state. The title of chapter 5 is Mercantilism, the Maghreb, and Kano City. And so from that title, the title begins, has to do with trading, businesses. The chapter has to do with businesses. The chapter provides a historical account of migrants' settlement patterns, especially migrants from North Africa, Fulanis, Agalawas, Tokarawas, and Kambari, Berberis, forgive me. And then, of course, the chapter looked at all of the interplay among the migrants and the indigenes, the host community, the relationships, and how, this, all of these marketing, religious, political relationships eventually added to what, the formation of the present day Kano's multicultural, multi-ethnic, and yet homogeneous characteristics. I tried to, in my summary, I tried three things. Who are the migrants? What was the motivation for migration? And what were the influences, we could, see in the chapter? I'm just going to be looking at some of them. The major migrants actually were from North Africa, from the Maghreb. They came into Kano from the author's account, the 15th century. You also had migrants, the Agalawas, the Tokarawas, and the Beriberi, who came by 1770s, mainly to sell kola nut, and then, of course, get involved in more business, And there were others. There were the Chadians, there were, there were the Fulanis. So many of them. Please permit me, I may not be able to mention all. Then what was the motivation for mercantilism, for migration to Kano, in and out of Kano? I found that the major motivation was commerce. Kano was opening up at the time for business, had a thriving market. So the North Africans were interested in Kano. They brought foreign products. They also exported products from Kano. Chadians also brought tea, sugar, Tripoli, some other merchants, some other merchants came with cattle, heads of it and all that. So commerce was a motivating factor for migration to Kano. Islamic religion was another. The jihad of 1804 had, made Kano a very prominent religious environment. So clerics, scholars, migrated to this place. Of course, this had a direct effect also on commerce. There was demand for writing materials. Of course, fashion changed. The religious leaders, fashion, as it were, changed. There was influence from the clothing materials, exported to Kano. Another influence was Kano's established a tradition of hospitality. It was a conducive environment. It was a place where migrants could come in and stay. Particularly, the author anyway noted that, particularly if the migrants were willing to, accept the culture of Kano, then it was a very good place to settle. And then, of course, there was, for Tripoli, because I found that the majority of the migrants who came into Kano at a particular point in focus here were Tripolitans, and there was a reason for that. There was conflict in Tripoli. It was a kind of hotbed. because of the struggle for the Mediterranean trade routes. So let me quickly look at influences, and then I will begin to tie up. Now, from the author's account of, of mercantilism, the Maghreb, and then Kano, you saw that the Maghreb, the Tripolitans, as migrants, they influenced their host so much. They helped to train Hausa apprentice workers in tailoring, leather works, commerce, cookery. They influenced their fashion, In fact, the author succinctly described their African agents, the Arab African agents, as people who had become so influenced by the Maghreb, the Tripolitans' fashion, that they could be aptly described as Black Arabs. All right, and there was also the linguistic influence. Naming some of the African Kano hosts, adopted Arab names, especially the African agents. A particular spot on the route to Camel Market was named by the Arabs as Alcantara, and that's the name. That's unwittingly, they gave that place the name, So linguistically, there was influence, and then there was, of course, security and commerce. There was intermarriage, although among the migrants and the host community, the North Africans intermarried with their Hausa elite class, but the author noted that no cases reported of intermarriage between pedigreed Arabs and their non-Arab trade agents. Of course, the Agalawas, the Tokarawa, and Kambari, Beriberi migrants were not so influenced in this regard. They were endogamous, preferred to live together, marry among themselves. And in politics, which is the last of the influence, in politics, the Arab migrants, initially were not interested in politics. They were, they were comfortable with the good reception they had, especially the one given by the emir. The emirs, they had very good relationship with the emirs, and they were comfortable. So they were more interested in business. But over time, that changed when in 1882, the fourth Amir, that's Abdullahi, died, and he had been he had had a very good relationship with the North Africa, the Tripolitans. So when he died and his brother emerged, became hostile to his family, eventually the Arabs had to intervene in the Kano civil war and helped to eventually realize the emergence of Aliyu as the emir. In terms of religion, of course, there was influence, particularly from the point of the migrants. They had to regularize religious, introduce the use of musical instruments. But interestingly, just like in business, where the Hausa trained workers went ahead later to improve on slippers, for example, and began to do embroidered slippers that they could, export. In the same vein, in religion also, the locals, the host community eventually found a way to improve on the use of bandiri, the musical instrument introduced by Arab migrants. And that influence, went beyond Kano to the rest of Hausa land. Now, the last one that I saw is tacit. It was tacitly expressed, but it's there. In the midst of all of these external influences coming on Kano, in the midst of the convergence of, different ethnic groups, cultures and all that, Kano itself had a moderating influence on all of this. the emirs, according to the author, deliberately adopted policies, that discourage formation of clans, linguistic or ethnic union. And so all of this helped to keep Kano an integrated and blended society and help to keep it, keep its homogeneous characteristic, in spite of the fact that it's like a confluence of so many cultures based on migration activities. Now, here are my critical observations. When I came into the review with a mindset that most of the time, the challenge of the migrant is that of adaptation to new territories. How do they cope? Why the author recognized this, he is able to describe how he succinctly described how Kanu's receptiveness contributed to, a fruitful migratory venture, especially in business for the North African migrants, And, another assumption is we always think that the host community, we feel either the host community or the migrants we have will benefit from the migration exercise. But in this case, the author successfully depicted, and anyway, he did say in the preface, I think, that he had, relationship with some of the Tripolitans who had lived, generations of Tripolitans who were able to help him with information. So he was able to paint a win-win situation for both parties. So you find out that the migrants and the host community, benefited, especially where trade was concerned. The book cover, I found it a bit limiting. By the time I read chapter 5, and I'm sure my colleagues have been discussing other chapters, I found that the image of a lone traveler on a donkey does not wholly capture, all of the interactions and activities, very robust interactions we found in the book. So there may be a need to revisit the book cover. And I would like to recommend also for further editing. I found a few of them, tenses related, punctuation and all that. But they are minimal, but I think it's important to revisit that. Yeah. Finally, I would like to, I think this book has the potential of forming a strong evidence-based approach to migration, population integration, and its impact on society. I'd like to recommend the book to researchers and scholars of history, peace, conflict, and others like myself who are interested in national integration studies. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ome. Thank you very much. We will now take Dr. Rima Orie. We've unmute you. Dr. Orie, are you there? Can you start, please? 5 minutes.
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
The chapter is on British arrival and establishment of native authority system. The author of the book, we already know, Dr. Badamo, gave a vivid picture of the impact that the arrival of the British and the subsequent establishment of the native authority had on the emerging Kano city in the midst of other settlers like the Fulanese and the French. In this review, I'd like to address 3 major areas, which is the introduction, or look at 3 major subheads, headings. The introduction, the content, under which I look at the overview, the high points, the critique, and then I will conclude. Under the content, I observe that the author chronicled the arrival of the influence of British arrival and the impact they had on even the settlers that were there already. Prior to this time, we had the Fulanese. And also we had eventually the French came. But the Fulanis were not interested in domineering. Theirs was one of, they got integrated into the system to be able to carry on their trade. They were quite happy with carrying on of the trade. But when with the British arrival, the story seems to change. The British explorers realized that most of what was happening was just at the corridor, the Niger Delta Basin. They needed to expand into the interior to be able to, because at the back of their mind, they were not interested in slave trade, but they wanted to be able to get raw materials for the host, for their to feed the industries over back then in UK, in Manchester, for instance, and so they were looking for raw materials and how to access it. They then looked at, set up a committee to investigate the nature of the hinterland to be able to see whether the possibility of exploring it. And then much later they set up the committee now gave a report that it will be better to take on the city empire emir by emir instead of having a total conquest immediately. And that was exactly what they did when the opportunity provided, when they were provided by the opportunity by the breaking of diplomatic relationship between the Royal Niger Company and the Caliphate in 1900. And with the assistance of one Adamu Jakadu, who incidentally is an indigene of Kano, but also a political agent and a political agent to Lugard, who was the overall colonial officer. They were able to bring down the city. And then, so quickly the city came down, they began to exert some influence. For instance, the name of the emir used to be Amir after the Fulanis. It was the Fulani name Amir that was eventually changed to the British emir. And then we have an anglicized version of Kwakoto, was now changed to Sokoto. Was anglicized to Sokoto. In terms of governance, we also saw that gradually the British, after conquering it, they tried to, after conquering the Kano, they tried to impose their own direct rule. But they quickly realized that this is inimical to the system of government that was in existence on their arrival, and being afraid of upsetting the system, and because their eye was on trade. So anything that is going to distort or divert that attention was put aside. So they quickly, when they saw that the direct rule was not acceptable to the emir and other members of the royal palace, they quickly adjusted it and adopted the indirect rule. But having adopted the indirect rule, they also tried to make some changes, reorganize the city. For instance, the entire Northern Protectorate now had, from the original 13 residents, they expanded it to 25. And one of the Kano is headed by a resident. So the Kano resident is in the person of Dr. Kagil. Dr. Kagil also tried to establish some, make some changes in the way the place was being governed. And some of it had to do with the tax collector. He set up the fiefs to be tax collectors. These were originally the role assigned to the royal slaves. And that kind of upsets the authority, the emir, to be uncomfortable, because it was like they are having a direct access and instruction to people that were hitherto under him. But Dr. Kagil quickly had to take a tour of meet the people of Kano. He visited more than 1,000 cities and hamlets, more than 1,000 villages and hamlets, explaining to the people the rationale for the changes, just to carry them along for the purpose of ensuring that the British people were able to meet their objective, which is exploitative trading. Also, Interestingly, it didn't go down well with the MA, and so he didn't allow the district officers to take up their posts where they were assigned, which also Dr. Kagil felt it was a challenge of his authority. What did he do? He quickly deposed the MS senior son and gave the title of Waziri to a slave boy under the MS palace, which was a kind of demotion for the MA. And then he was not communicating with the, refused to communicate with the MA in other affairs of his. But when also the colonial officer Lugard realized that this was the position, and also to ensure that they keep their eye focused on exploitative trading, he quickly reversed it and used Mr. Temple to change. He withdrew Dr. Kagil and replaced him with Mr. Temple, and then reversed most of the things that was done to. He reinstated the son of the emir. In terms of finance, the British government quickly realized that they needed enough funding so as to be independent of the colonial treasury. Normally they have to look for grants in aid of the administration of the local place. So they saw in the Karumi market a veritable source of revenue, and they quickly, Lugard asked the Kano authority to give him a report. When from the report he realized that, oh, this is going to be a very big source of revenue. He expanded, he gave instructions for them to expand the market, rebuild it, reorganize it, such that they were basically a very straightforward way of collecting taxes for them. And there was two major taxes, the cattle tax, which they call the Jangali, and the Dera tax, which was the Haraji. So and then it was a 50-50, the sharing was 50-50 between the colonial government and the emir headed by the emir. But somehow, because it was difficult to collect these taxes over bad roads and all that, it was later reduced to a quarter. So the British government was taking a quarter of it instead of 50%. In terms of judiciary, it was also noted, the author also noted succinctly that the local government, the British government headed by Lugard, also tried to redesign the judiciary in line with the system that was in place in Britain. But when the MA revolted against it, or they expressed their displeasure, he quickly decided to have a compromise. The compromise was to create the alkali, and the alkali was in charge of mostly the criminal matters, and the Sariki, which one was now headed by the MA, while the legal administration was more like an appellate court that listens to cases that were not, the MA was not able to handle. By and large, the authority the MA was also now subsumed or reduced. Regarding education, it was the author noted that most of the education, there was no proper foundation for education, but what they did was to look at the available skills and see how they convert these available skills to the modern day reading and writing in Hausa, so that the people would be able to administer, at least when they give them letters, they'll be able to communicate fairly well, and then they'll be able to write basic letters and do basic job assignment. Also, there was establishment of local a survey office. But what they also did, just like in education, was to use the local surveyors and just brush them up and taught them how to improve on their drawing, to be able to do the mapping of the place when they needed to lay pipe water, and for other facilities. Similar thing happened with the health. Also to be able to, the sanitary people were used for them and improve. They trained them a bit to be able to handle some basic health issues. By and large, the essence of these further developments, from the author's point of view, was also to meet the purpose of the British dominance and to ensure that their trade, their ambition on trade was not scuttled, or their focus on exploitative trade was not scuttled. I look at the highlights or the high points of the chapter now. I'll look at the high points. First of all, I saw that the author is to the credit of the author, that he brought to the fore the relevance of peace for the migrants in the choice of host community. And secondly, in the development of commerce in a region that is already generally volatile politically. And I'm happy that the last presenter also mentioned that the Fulanis were in search of peace, in search of a friendly environment, which Kano provided, because there was already, their own area was complete with wars and all that. And then the unique nature of the migrants. The author also painted a vivid description of the various migrants which gave life to the chapter. It was easy to see the way the host, it was easy to see, to give, it was able to give us an idea of the possible overbearing influence that the migrants exerted on the host community and vice versa. For example, they established their own rulership and introduced the appointment of city mayors in the person of the Galadima Kano before the British came. And when the author also noted that Chinese also try to get themselves integrated into the system, into the life of the people. That even when they were asked to appoint a representative, they appointed one that was an agent in Kano instead of appointing one of their own. That shows a lot of integration and trust in the host community. Unlike the British, who when they came, it was they were all out to dominate. And very early, they crushed the French rivalry in the area. And to ensure that they didn't have, because they saw the French as a potential threat, and they quickly ensured that their presence will not be reckoned with. The British also, the British also tried to establish, the British also exerted influence. I've already mentioned that even the Arabic Emir was changed to the British Emir, and then that the Sakwato was changed to Sokoto. It's also commendable that the author kept alive the focus of the book. Sometimes you have writers who are in the middle of the work will get derailed, but it's to the credit of this author that he was able to keep focus, and the convergence of the various cultures in Kano, the influence of these cultures on the city and vice versa. So almost invariably, he kept bringing out the impact of the presence of either the Fulanis or the British, or mostly the British, after the interest of the Fulanis and that of the French had been overridden by the British. So that way, the writer was able to achieve the objective of the chapter. Also, the writing style of the author, it is an easy read. It's although he has very rich Hausa, he speaks out Hausa, he's from Kano and all that, but bearing in mind that people like us who are not from Kano will be reading the book, he made it a lot easier for us to understand and to flow by using most English language, and when he brings in Hausa language or name, he tries to explain it so that the reader will still follow. The writer also has an eagle eye. We made it part of the rift between the Emir and Dr. Magali, and how it was eventually, how and why it was immediately resolve to ensure that the British do not have an upset and that they do not have a religious riot similar to what was already happening in some other regions. I'll now look at critical evaluation, do a critical evaluation of the book. I looked at the cover page. I'm glad that when the last speaker was speaking, he said that she also noted that the author was apt in his use of picture of the camel and a man, presumably who I presume to be a migrant trader, sitting on it, which gives the impression that it's somebody who is on a voyage, somebody who is a trader. However, since the book is focused on migrants from various walks of life as being mainly traders, one would have expected to see something like a donkey bearing some goods to show that the article of commerce was also important. One would have also expected to, or the book would have been in read, the cover would have been better in read with a picture of maybe a white man or as the migrant sitting on the camel and standing in the background, or even standing or sitting in the background, just to see that, because the man sitting on that, the migrant trader sitting on that camel seems to be, appears to me to be a northerner. Meanwhile, the chapter 6 is all about British and more of British migrants and a bit of the Fulanese and French. So that gave it of a scope of the work, which could be improved upon. In terms of content, I said it suited the British to explore Kano economically without sufficient efforts to lay a foundation for the industrial and educational development of the people. They're just interested in exploitative trading. And consequently, we see that Western education and development was faster in the southern part of Nigeria than in the north because of as a consequence of the British action or system of governance. I also observed that the chapter would have been better enriched with a discussion on the political consequences of leaving Nigeria without an appropriate governance structure, reflective of the diversities which federalism will have guaranteed. Because of that exploitative tendency, all they wanted was what would be to their benefit, and not really to ensure that these people who have diverse cultures and traditions and all that were united on account of their governance and all that to become one fused entity to be able to forge ahead better after independence. So in conclusion, I would like to say that Chapter 6 sets out or set out to explore mainly the impact of the British government as migrants had on the city of Kano, and how it influenced the emergence of Kano as a cosmopolitan city. And it also shows how the indigenous, the Kano people were able to absorb some of the influences, integrated it into their own lifestyle, and to make for better development and in a limited form in their own commerce. Nevertheless, an inclusion of this discussion of the British legacy, although one could argue that it could be positive or negatively, in terms of laying an appropriate foundation of what became the present Nigeria, would have given us the chapter more holistically. Overall, in a global setting where drums of war and discrimination is common, I find that the chapter is a useful and substantial contribution to knowledge of how to develop effective cultural assimilation and understanding of these studies in a cosmopolitan environment, and therefore I recommend it to the policymakers, scholars, researchers, especially in peace and conflict resolution and history, and also to stakeholders with commensurate appetite for sustainable migration. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Orie. We appreciate you, just like we appreciate others. We will now quickly move on to chapter 7. Dr. Gawama, are you with us? I couldn't identify you with a name. If you are with us, kindly let us know whether you join as Infinis or as what have you. If not, we have to move on to our guest presenter all the way from University of Ibadan. Dr. Gamawa. I've also sent a test to you, regular test, and also test on all forum. Are you there, Dr. Gamawa? Okay, Professor Olani, are you with us? Let me see, Olani. Professor Olani. Well, Professor Olani, I'm trying to see if he join us with a name, his real name or something else. Can't find any Olani. Well, let me tell you a little bit so that we can round up and go to question and answers. Professor Olani reviewed chapter 8, and his view about chapter 8 is predicated on his use of this book, even before I got to know. Professor Olani is a professor of history at the University of Ibadan, History Department. But before his upward movement and becoming a full professor, I'm going to unmute everyone to see whether Olani is with us. If Professor Olani is with us, please say it. And kindly mute yourself if you still have your children. Okay, Olani has used this particular book, and indeed, when I was having issue with who is going to do chapter 8, it readily came to mind. I then remember that somebody submitted a chapter for peer review in a book that I edited in 2006, and the title is Nigeria Urban History, Past and Present. So I reached out to Professor Olani 2 days ago, and he worked on it. But what is interesting about his own submission, if I can just summarize, is the fact that the book is usable, is the fact that he also encountered late Dr. Muhammadu Adamu, and he benefited immensely from his work. Basically, I'm trying to do so many things at the same time. Basically, he also presented to us an unusual writing about Kano that remains significant to the present day. In the introduction, he is of the opinion that the title is apt. The title is apt, and it is relevant in 1999 and indeed in the present period, 2020, and it will continue to be relevant. Professor Olani raised the issue of Kano becoming a city, looking at its trajectory from the ancient time to the medieval and to the modern time or contemporary time, as eloquently narrated by the author. He also identified the kind of urban culture that emerged as a result of the convergence of culture, convergence of ethnicity, convergence of religion, convergence of trade and commerce, notwithstanding the continuous desertification of the Sahara, the major route or route that connects Kano and most what is today northern Nigeria. He identified as follows: a ritual city, administrative city, mercantile city, scholastic city, a colonial city, and industrial and neo-colonial city. And these are the trajectories that late Dr. Adamo has eloquently narrated to us. We want to thank him for taking the time within a short, less than 48 hours to do this. And he also recommend to us that scholars, students, and general readers should take interest in this significant magnus opus. And I want, on that presentation of Professor Olani's remarks, open the floor for questions. We are hoping to round up at 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock. It's 11:42 by my watch. So let me unmute everybody. And please, before I unmute you, I also should note that the PowerPoint, the full PowerPoint is already posted on Telegram. I repeat, the full PowerPoint is posted on Telegram, I believe about 15 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago. So you can open, you can read, and then we can continue the conversation should you not be able to have a comment or question. Again, I thank each and every one of you for staying with us this far. I thank you for accommodating the technical issues. And please, once I unmute everybody, kindly mute yourself if you are not speaking so that we don't hear the dogs and the children and the husband or wife asking for more food. Thank you very much. I would like, just one second. Dr. Sheme, are you with us now?
Yes, I am.
Dr. Sheme, you will go first. You were supposed to go right by the program right after my introduction. We all listened to Dr. Sheme, and how did you sign in? Because I couldn't find Sheme. So that I can mute. Okay, I've seen you now.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to mute everybody again, and then unmute Dr. Sheme. Okay, Dr. Sheme, go ahead.
Okay, sir. Good morning, everybody. Am I supposed to bend my tribune to ask a question? Because you said this is the second time.
Go ahead, Dr.
Hello,
Sheme.
sir. Okay,
yes,
can you hear me now?
We can
Okay,
hear you loud and clear.
I asked whether I should present my review,
Please.
my tribute,
Yes.
or am I
Yes,
supposed to ask a question? Because this is a question.
No, you are presenting your tribute and your comments, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you. Actually, I wrote a tribute a day after the author of this magnificent book died. That's Dr. Muhammad Uba Adamu. Most of the information, even though I knew him personally, but most of the information, especially the personal information I got about him, came from his son, Professor Abdullah Uba Adamu. So I think I should begin by thanking the VC for giving me that amount of information to be able to write this tribute to his dear father. The title of my tribute is The Man Dr. Muhammad Uba Adamu, Kantoma. Kantoma actually be known as Kantoma because of what he did as a public servant in those days. So the title is The Man Dr. Muhammad Uba Adamu, in bracket Kantoma, who lived at 1935 to 2020. The tribute goes as follows. The man Dr. Muhammad Uba Adamu was one of the last men standing in traditional northern Nigeria in three areas: as public service, scholarship, and the arts. A historian, poet, and ethnographer, he died suddenly at dusk in a Kano hospital in April 2020, which is, I think, 10 days ago. And he died as a result of age-related complications. A family member told him that he had been hale and hearty that morning, actually until that morning when he fell ill. He died at the age of 85 years old. It's known as Kantoma. Dr. Muhammad Uba Adamu had enjoyed remarkably good health all his life, having been hospitalized only 4 times in his 8.5 decades, including this last one. His death came at a time when Kano was passing through a difficult time, with prominent and not so prominent people dying in comparatively large numbers, as reports of a devastating attack of the coronavirus pandemic on the city were rampant. Kantoma is survived by 2 wives, 17 children, and 54 grandchildren. His eldest son is Professor Abdullah Uba Adamu, the Vice Chancellor of National University of Nigeria. Dr. Adamu was born in the old quarters of Kano, in the old quarters of Daneji, that's a section of Kano called Daneji in Kano, on the 10th December 1935, at house number 147, which is now number 97. He was the third of the 5 surviving children of his parents. He and his younger brother, Alhaji Anbala Adamu, were male, and they had 3 sisters. Dr. Adamu was the last surviving child of his parents. They were Royal Education, that's a chain of Kano. After which he proceeded to the famous School for Arabic Studies, SAS, and then on to Delahi Bayero College, which became Bayero University, all based in Kano. He obtained a BSc in political history in 1968. He also attended the University of Ife at Ile-Ife, that is today's Obafemi Awolowo University, for a short course in public administration. Malam Muhammadu Uba Adamu had an artistic streak in him, having developed a keen sense of scholarship and literature. He was bitten by the writing bug at an early age. I gave an example here. As a young academician, he was interested in history and poetry, even though his calling was in administration. His first academic paper, titled "Some Notes on the Influence of North African Traders in Kano." You can see that this paper, I should say, formed the bedrock of the book that has been reviewed this morning. So that academic paper, "Some Notes on the Influence of North African Traders in Kano," was published in the journal Kano Studies in 1968. In that paper, he analyzed the cultural and religious encroachment of Arab traders, that is Libyans, Egyptians, and Moroccans residing in Kano at the time, on the locality, that their influence on the locality, especially their Islamic tariqah values, food practices, and dressing codes, which many of the indigenous Hausa people adopted and turned into their own cultural and religious identity. He was appointed as a district officer, that is DO, for a town nearby, near Kano, called Ambata, in 1969, under the military administration of Governor Audu Bako. A year later, he was promoted to the post of Kantoma Kano de Kiwei, which means Mayor of Kano and environs. In this position, he was the local authority official in charge of infrastructure and sanitation. He embarked on and the rest. His vision was for the modernization of the ancient metropolis. So impactful was his intervention that the government asked him in 1970 to make the committee that computed and returned the property owned by the Rangers quarters in Kano by traders at the onset of the Nigerian civil war that had, however, compensated for their loss. The people of Kano took note of Kantoma's work. Apart from having the ear of the powers that be, including the Emir Alaja Adubaya, the honorable he faithfully served were palpably so enamored of him. The famous Hausa poet, Malam Akil Aliyu, was so impressed that he penned a panegyric, that's a poem of praise, for him entitled Zane Ziyarar Shugaba Dattija Kantoma Uba. It means, I am paying homage to the kindly leader, the Mayor Uba. That poem was written in the Ajami, that is Arabic kind of script, but in Hausa language. The practical of writing by Hausa poets in those days was Muhammad at his house by the poet himself 3 years later. Kantoma left the mayoralty in 1975 when he went to the University of Pennsylvania in the United States of America for postgraduate studies. He obtained SC in 1976. Back home in Nigeria, he was
Sorry, Dr. Sharma, we're losing you. The audio is not clear anymore. Dr. Sharma, we can't hear you anymore. I think the network is getting bad at your end also. Pretty much, let me just take over from here. I want to appreciate all of you, and I believe I do not see any hands up, but I will unmute everyone. And if you have a question
Hello,
or
can you hear me
comment,
now?
yes, sir, we can hear
Hello,
you.
can you hear me now?
Let's go.
Some of us are still not following the etiquette of this situation. We said, keep your children away or you mute yourself. Let's be disciplined about this. Act as if we are in the office. Dr. Sheme, go ahead, please. I'll give you 2 minutes so that we can round up. Dr. Sheme?
Hello, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, sir. 2 minutes.
Okay, can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I said that he wrote this particular book we are discussing this morning, and it was published in 1999 during his retirement. And I learned that the VC of NOUN, Professor Abdallah Obadam, is now working on reprinting the book because it's out of print. Now, that book was so significant that the Kano State government, I think I will round up. The Kano State government commissioned the translation of that book into Hausa language, so local people can find it accessible. And the author, Dr. Muhammad Obadam, actually translated it himself, and it was published in 2007 in 4 different volumes. And following the success of that work, the Kantoma saw that poem written for him by Dr. Agilu, and he decided to do something about it. So he wrote another book, which is called Tunabaya, which means recollection. That one was published in 2009. Then he wrote another book called in Hausa Sabon Taring Asalan, which means new history of the origin of Hausa people, which was published in 2011. In that book, he brought new perspectives to the origin of. And in 2001, he engaged a famous singer, Hausa singer in Kano, to compose some poems that he had written in the past to music. He said he could not sing, so he got that singer to sing the poems. There are 4 of them. A CD was produced of that collection, which is in circulation, and I'm sure the team must be working on producing another one now. So in conclusion, it is obvious that the death of this grand old man was a huge loss, not only to his family, but to the people of Kano and to everybody, to the general humanity. It is sad that he has not been properly celebrated by those that should do so, considering his immense contributions to the people of Kano as a modern metropolis and to the area of letters. However, his works will always speak for him forever, as they are speaking for him right now. Thank you. May his soul rest in peace.
Thank you. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, Dr. Sheme. We really appreciate you finding time to join us and to present this. I will unmute everyone now. Do I have, nobody's raising up hand to make a comment or question? In the absence of that, I want to unmute and I want Professor Olani to speak, if you are still with us, Professor Olani from Ibadan, to speak. I will unmute everyone. Professor Olani, are you there?
No.
Professor Olani, it seems that it's fluctuating in and out. Okay. You can read his presentation on the PowerPoint. I have posted it on the Telegram as well as the WhatsApp group. I'm going to unmute the VC to give us a closing remark as usual. The Vice Chancellor, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. On behalf of the MOVE family, we would like to appreciate you for the attention you have been given to this man. It just happens to be a coincidence that I happen to be the Vice Chancellor and he happened to be my father, and we are focusing on him. Otherwise, there are a lot of people whose parents are equally famous, they are equally good, they have made a lot of contribution to their societies, but we're not discussing them. So I would like to thank you very much for this honor. It was real honor. This is the first time that his book was being discussed academically and being analyzed academically. We had a lot of arguments with him. What we did was he would write the narrative and I will type it. That's how we have been working. He'll write and I will type. And there are cases where I disagreed with him. And he was the kind of person who loves a lot of arguments. So there are cases, for instance, there's a place where he said that the jihad in Kano was not justified. And I disagreed. I said, this is dangerous. I mean, nobody will come and say that that jihad was justified. Everybody has been given all the sort of reasons why there should be jihad in Kano. And he said, no, if you look at the way Islam was practiced in Kano, the jihad in Kano was not justified because Islam in Kano was done very well. So the book is a combination of so many things. There are other factors which I have missed because of the unstable network. But he was also talking about Libyan connection, how Libyans have connected. And up to now in Kano, we have an area called Unguwa Turawa. That is the area where white people live. These guys were the descendants of all those Arabs who stayed in Kano for all these years. There was also a book that has been, well, not a book, a thesis that has been published in the Department of History in Bayero University about Edo, people from Edo, which is now in Benin, and about how they settled in Kano. So there's a lot of all these things. There's another book, it was a thesis, but this has been published called The Lebanese in Kano, how the Lebanese came to be in Kano. So we have a lot of, Kano is a confluence of so many influences. Over 40% of the language that the Hausa people speak is not really Hausa, it's Arabic. They get it from Arabic sources. They don't have their own, I mean, their own language has been supplanted by Arabic. So there are other areas that I think we need to look at when we are dealing with these issues. For instance, during the Israeli bombardment of Lebanon, the Lebanese in Kano protested. They held a street march, but they were shocked when Kano people did not join. And they asked them, why are you not joining us? We are Muslims. They said, no, what is happening in Lebanon is between you and the Israelis. It has nothing to do with Islam. So we have nothing to do with that. So is religion a factor in community integration when it comes to migration? I mean, these guys are migrants and they had a problem, and the indigenous population are saying that's your own problem, not our problem. And so there are a lot of other factors, and I think that we need to look at. We also need to look at migration in popular culture. Who among the migrants stimulate popular culture? Because that's my area of study. Who among the immigrants initiate new music, new arts, new performing arts, and so on? And how do the new immigrants come in with their own ideas and then transplant? Like the Arabs that influenced Kano, they did not bring in any artistic forms in Kano. They didn't. They only focus on Tariqa, as Shemi said, only on Tariqa. Tariqa is a religious worship. So we would like to thank you very much for paying attention to the book. This is the first time that an attention has been paid on the book. And I remember the Kantoma was annoyed one day, very irritated. He said that people are not reading. So I asked him, why did you come to that conclusion? And that was about like immediately after the book was published. He said that nobody was buying his book. I said, people are reading. They read the Quran, they read the Bible every day. They just don't like your book. They're not reading your book because they don't like it. They don't know what it is all about because it's in English and these guys can understand English. So that's when he started the idea of writing it in Hausa. And Ibrahim, it is 5 volumes. So what we have done now is we are going to compact all the 5 volumes into one. And it will be released on the anniversary of his death, 27th April next year, by God's grace. So I told him, and I bought all the books, the rest of the books, about, I think, 20 remaining. I went and bought all of them and I paid for it. And I was giving them away in my office right there. Tijani, if you had asked, I would have given you a copy free of charge because I was giving them out. But no, you didn't ask. So I had only one copy myself. But I have the electronic copy. Because, no, you can't, because I had it in electronic form. So I sent it to the group. I don't know if it has been received.
All of us, yes.
I also included a critical review by Professor Philip Shea. Yeah, so by Philip Shea, so that at least people will see that it was not a paint job. I mean, there are some mistakes in the book, and they were pointed out, but that was his interpretation. He interpreted things from the position of Torove. Torove means Batoranki, and Batoranki is a brand of immigrants. They are not Fulani at all. The main Fulanis in Kano were Sulbe, dark skin. Actually, that is what Sulbe means, dark skin. So the emir of Kano and all his siblings are dark skinned. But my dad was Torobe. They are the ones who are light skinned. And they were not really Fulani. They only acquired the Fulani language in Jalon Highland. And there were all these myths and things like that, that they came, they are the people of Moses. When Moses was to cross the Red Sea, some people felt that, hey, this is too much, we can't cross that one. So some of his people left and migrated down south. And they arrived at Jalon Highland, met the local women population and married them and acquired their language. So, but the Torobe, if you look through all the revolutions in West Africa, all the jihad in West Africa, it was started by the Torobe. They have always been a scholastic class. So it was not surprising that he himself maintained that particular tradition. And all this business of double professorship and things like that, to be very frank with you, he was my inspiration. He was the one who, including music, he was the one who taught me music. He was the one who really engaged me in music. All will be revealed in a biography of mine that is being written. So once more, thank you very much for your kindness. And please feel free to criticize the book. I had wanted to update the book, but the librarian refused. The librarian said that first editions are always printed as first editions. They are just simply say reprinted. That if you add anything to it, you are actually destroying the original flavor of the book. That you should reproduce it as it is. Even if there were mistakes, let other people now, you have something for other people to look at, but don't try to correct any mistake. It's not a paper, it's a book. So the librarian was against the idea of the book being published. The only place where he agreed was that we change the cover. So the cover of that man on a camel was changed to a horseman, about 3 or 4 horsemen, driving, galloping. And we felt that that was more dynamic because that shows their movement and dynamism of people. So thank you very much. What you have in the PDF that I sent is the book. Nothing was removed, nothing was added. That was exactly how he wrote it in 1999. And you are free to sort of pass it on to whoever you want. So once more, I would like to thank you very much for honoring my father, not because of the fact that I am the Vice Chancellor, but simply because he was a scholar. And what we have done is, just like tomorrow or next week, we are going to analyze another book. So we are just analyzing his book. It just happened to be the starting point. So I would like to thank you once more, and thank Dr. Sheme for his brilliant obituary, which has brought out exactly what he was. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Indeed, you've spoken the mind and heart of the center, because at the opening session, I did mention the fact that this is just a divine intervention. Divine in the sense that, of course, book and film series is part of our signature program or activity in the center. But indeed, the book by late Dr. Muhammadu Adamu is, it was actually slated as a second. And I was going to post on Telegram when we migrated to Telegram, particularly and purposefully for this book and film series. And then Dr. Sheme posted something about the demise of the late patriarch. And I said, wait a minute, so I withdrew. And that is how we moved it. So it wasn't planned. It wasn't, we did not even, we're not even thinking about, we're thinking about it being the second in the series. But of course, because what happened, we have to move it to the number one. So, and I thank you for saying this, because you've given us the latitude to just freely, you know, flower in the center, and we appreciate you, sir. I want to thank again my colleagues for staying this far, and I want to thank all the fellows for also agreeing to do this. My apologies for my kind of administrative style, and because when we have to move the book to number one, I have to call on the fellows to do this, and I know it wasn't easy. Just like within 48 or so hours, I have to call on Professor Rashid Olani, who actually met with the late patriarch and used this particular book without me knowing, because I was in the state then, for his chapter that was peer-reviewed, titled the Sabongeri communities in Kano, where he historicized the Yorubas. This was published as Nigeria Urban History, Past and Present, by University Press, 2006. And on that note, I would like to thank everybody. Please, let's continue the conversation on Telegram or on WhatsApp. I've posted the PowerPoint, and I will look forward to seeing you next week. The book and film series is also a recurring event, just like the seminar series. And we hope to tap into your knowledge, and we pray that you continue to share your knowledge with us when we call on you. Thank you, and stay safe and stay alive. God bless you all. Bye-bye. Let me unmute so that I can hear all the...
So thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a very wonderful time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
The platform.
I can see Danny. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And then we have
sir.
the recording of this, so you can also view it on YouTube. Thank you very much. And the technical assistant behind the scene, I thank you so much for all your effort. Thank you, man. Bye.
Thank you.